All right, welcome everyone to the Tips for Speedy Year-End Budgeting and Planning webinar. I am Thomas Ironstone, the manager of our CPM BI division. So today's agenda, we're going to be talking about our experiences and things we see actually out implementing budgeting solutions, providing consulting services. We're going to be going through some of the top 7 year-end budgeting challenges and tips for overcoming those challenges. And we're going to be reviewing our top 4 budgeting technologies to help overcome those challenges, discuss a little bit about the ROI from effective budgeting, and then we'll be going through some questions and answers towards the end. Corporate Renaissance Group, we are a professional services company. We've been around for actually almost 30 years now. We're a partner in leading business systems, including Microsoft Board, IDU Concept, RapidStart, and Adaptive Insights. We help our clients transform the way they operate their long-term business growth, and we focus on better decision-making through technology. So whether that's ERP, FP&A, BI, talent management, and much more. And we're clearly aware that there's no such thing as one size fits all in some cases. We have to look at the needs, the size of the organization, the number of users involved, things like that to understand what type of solution would be best fit for that particular use case. So a few of the common budgeting and forecasting challenges that happen for many organizations, and be aware you're not alone. This is for companies of all sizes. First is a lot of organizations largely depend on manual spreadsheet-based budgeting. So this tends to be very time-consuming from an administration standpoint. So the finance team, which as you imagine as finance professionals, you have this wealth of knowledge and ability to analyze and provide value-added services within your organization, but you're spending a lot of time, say, administering these Excel workbooks, whether it's compiling them, sending them out to the users, making sure they're up to date, addressing broken linkages, things like that, and then recompiling them at the end of the budget cycle, and then trying to produce reports manually. So it's very painful and it consumes a lot of the finance resources. Another issue is the business users that are involved in that budgeting process. So as we're well aware that budgeting does happen every time, the same time every year, for some reason, participants tend to forget that this is an important business process. So they tend to be unclear of the budgeting cycle, the requirements, the deadlines, and we have to go through keeping track of people, almost re-educating them on what they're supposed to do time and again. Another issue is that during the middle of the budget cycle, that the contributors have actually trouble accessing the latest budgets or forecasts throughout the year. They might be looking at an old budget workbook. It might be from last year. They're not sure which one they're updating, and it just makes a whole mess of things. And they could actually be spending a lot of their dedicated time outside of the normal business function to complete their budgets, and then to find out maybe they're updating an old workbook, something like that. And these are all sorts of challenges that can happen from a manual Excel-based approach. Another challenge is preparing purely dollar-based budgets. A lot of the time with organizations, whether they're a public sector, private sector, whether they're not-for-profit or whether they're for-profit organizations of any industry, the people from the business side, they might understand, say, dollars and cents, but when they think of how they're running their organization, they're thinking of the operational aspect of it. They understand volumetrics, understand, say, number of new clients, number of new customers, number of products that we're selling, the components of the products that might go into it, number of hours that were worked on a project, things like that. And so if you can actually construct those templates from a driver-based approach, then they can have a better appreciation. But a lot of the time, organizations, they send out these Excel workbooks that are asking these non-finance, non-accounting individuals to input dollars, and they're not exactly sure how they can prepare a meaningful number. Or then when they're trying to track variances against it, it might not be meaningful to them because it's at such a high level and they're not sure how they can move the dial. Another issue is the slow turnaround for budget revisions. So during the budget cycle, as all the budget managers are inputting their budget data, it might get manually rolled up by the finance team. It gets then presented maybe to the directors. They might want to propose some changes, and then you have to then go back to maybe the budget managers to revise it at a detailed level, and then it might go back up to maybe senior management. or maybe the board, and then further revisions have to be made, and trying to go back down to the budget managers to update their detailed work plan in Excel world can be very painful. So the whole process around doing revisions in the budget cycle can be very time consuming and sometimes not value added, in the sense that if we're making revisions at a very high level and not updating the detailed project plans, then when we're tracking it throughout the year, say as a budget manager, I won't be able to know if what I'm doing is aligned with the overall goals of the organization from a financial standpoint. Another issue is that accounts aren't synchronized to the accounting system. And so what I mean by that is when, let's say the finance team is preparing the budget workbooks each year, that need to go out to the business folks to prepare their budgets. There's lots of updates that need to be done to those Excel workbooks. Maybe new accounts are added, maybe new departments are added. And then we have to actually go through maybe line by line in those different workbooks and make sure that they include that new account, they include that new department, just as a few examples. And it's not fully synchronized with the overall accounting system. And another issue, and this is probably one of the biggest pain points, is recreating reports and presentations when the revision cycle is done. So as we know, a lot of the time, finance will collect the budgets. There might be revisions and they need to prepare, say, PowerPoint presentations, for example. A lot of the time, this is copy and pasting from those Excel workbooks or from the different charts and graphs they might have made, put them back into their PowerPoint or Word documents, and then if changes are made, they need to do that over and over again. And just very, very manual, painful process. So what are some tips to overcome those challenges? I'm sure a lot of those challenges resonated with everyone that's attending this webinar, regardless of the organization that they're a part of, or maybe if they're on the business side or on the finance side. These are definitely challenges that affect most individuals that touch the budget cycle. So tip number one is to streamline and automate your templates. So if right now, regardless of whether we're using Excel or a budget system, is the fact that we need to create structured templates that don't have to be recreated again and again each year. So as we're going through, say, at the beginning before we're doing our budget prep, we don't need to recreate Excel templates. We can create something that's structured and that can be reused. So when we create these workbooks, thinking of the maintenance of them is something to keep in mind. And the ideal case is if you are leveraging, say, a budget system, is that when you create those structured templates, as you're inputting the data, it's automatically being captured and rolled up automatically on a multidimensional basis. So just something to consider, creating those structured templates to help automate your process. Another tip is to ensure clarity around the budgeting cycle. So as I mentioned, that even though this happens every time each year, people tend to forget. They tend to forget maybe what's required of them, or it might not be too clear to them. So it's important, regardless of the system that you're using, is to establish a clear and consistent communication plan that's endorsed by the leaders. So at the beginning, prior to the budget cycle, clear communication sent out to all the business users business folks that are involved in the budgeting cycle, so they understand what the timelines are and what's expected from them. Maybe some high-level assumptions when they're going into this that might be rolling down from the overall strategic plan. If you can create workflow with milestones, who's required to complete what task, absolutely helps the budget process. So then they're actually accountable for the tasks that they need to complete by a particular date. And it might be easier as an administrator of the budget cycle to keep track who's completed, what's required of them. Another tip is to make all budgets and data accessible. And what I mean by that is, as we know, we're going through the budget cycle. An individual might not, if you're sending maybe your workbooks out by email, people might say, oh, I can't find that email. Or they might be referring to an old email, for example, from last year, or they might be out of the office and they're having trouble even accessing what's been provided to them. So there's all sorts of challenges that happen during the budget cycle, and it's preventing people from completing their budget, or maybe at least giving them an excuse not to complete their budget on time. So we want to limit those excuses and make it easier for them. So what can we do? So a few options is we can actually leverage things like leveraging your company network. So you might have a folder, shared drive on the network, leveraging company portals, for example, where we have the workbooks and directories set up. so individuals can go into them and actually update those workbooks. However, if you're leveraging, say, a budgeting application, budgeting software platforms, is that all of that's essentially done for you. It's already designed to be collaborative and accessible over the web, or even leveraging potentially Excel templates, for example. So all of these are interconnected, and as they're updating, and they can access it wherever they are, they can access it whether it's online or offline, prepare their budgets, write it back to the database, everything's ready to go. And no longer are you worrying about people being able to access the budget when they finally find time to do it. Another tip is to avoid purely dollar-based budgets. So purely dollar-based budgets, as I was mentioning, are sometimes not meaningful to non-finance individuals. They're thinking of running their organization, they're running their business unit, running their department, and they're thinking of it more from an operational standpoint, not necessarily thinking of it just in purely dollar terms. So when we're preparing those budget templates, whether they're in Excel or in a budgeting system, is to actually set it up to be driver-based. And what I mean by driver-based is to think of decomposing those dollars into, say, the units and rate that goes into those dollar amounts. So you can kind of decompose it. And so now when an individual is preparing their budget, they can think of number of new customers added, and they can actually think of maybe all the number of materials that go into a particular product. And they're actually thinking at the detail level and not just thinking of in purely dollar terms. So then when they're actually preparing their budget, they're actually thinking of the volumetrics, inputting their data from a volume standpoint. They change the rates and they can flex those two variables, and they're actually preparing a budget that's more meaningful to them. And you can also provide last year comparatives as an example of those volumetrics, so when they can see potentially the volumes that were prepared last year, and so that might also have an understanding of the impact from a business standpoint. So if volumes are up or if volumes are down from last year, that will obviously give them more of a sense of what the impact will be then at the end of the day in dollar terms. So being able to decompose it into units and rates can definitely go a long way, and also from a variance analysis perspective. And then they can actually manage that throughout the year to understand if they're hitting their targets, and then if they're not hitting their targets, giving them a better sense of what they can do to close that gap. Another tip is to speed up the turnaround of budget revisions. So in this process, one aspect of it, obviously if we're in an Excel world, that can be very challenging. If you can actually set a proper timeline, give yourself enough space between those important steps of the budgeting process, whether it's the initial strategic plan, high-level target setting, to the detailed work plans that are prepared by the budget managers, to then the revisions by review by SMT, and then the board of directors. If you give yourself enough lead time between those, it can give you enough at least space to have that back and forth. But again, when we're in that Excel world, as we're talking about, sometimes it's really difficult to ask our to make changes at, say, a high level, and ask the business managers at the detailed level to make changes to their work plan. So sometimes that process can be a little bit challenging. The more involved they are actually in the budget preparation cycle, and then moving it away from just sort of finance, preparing the budget by engaging the business users and making it a little bit more collaborative, can also help with that process as well, and with the revisions, as opposed to maybe something being changed and then maybe finance trying to figure out at a detailed level how to change it. Whereas if, say, the business contributors are involved in the overall budget process from a collaborative standpoint, and they're more engaged, then they can actually better facilitate those revisions. So definitely making it more collaborative, and actually allowing them to be involved in those different stages of the workflow is absolutely critical for to make sure that the budget revisions are turned around in a speedier fashion. Another tip, as I was mentioning, is to synchronize your accounts that are used in your budgeting model with your accounting system. So say if you're using Excel just as a base, creating links, creating lists that are linked to, say, your chart of accounts can make it a little bit easier. Maybe if you're leveraging VLOOKUPs, for example, just to make it a little bit simpler and it's not as static. But obviously that can still create all sorts of maintenance nightmares. But at least if you approach it from that sense to maybe make your Excel workbooks a little bit more dynamic, can definitely go a long way. However, in most modern budgeting applications, they allow for integration back to your accounting system. So as new accounts are added, you can run the integration and everything's, say, updated in your budget model to reflect new accounts that have been added, maybe new departments that have been added, things of that nature. So then your whole budget model stays in sync with your accounting system. And this is also important from a reporting standpoint as well. So not only is your budget model up to date and people have all the correct accounts that they need to budget against, but when you're doing your reporting, having those new accounts in there and all the linkages up to your reporting, your final reporting will definitely go a long way to not have to worry about if an account's not included in the budget and then potentially might be not included in your reporting. So just, again, something to consider. The final tip is don't present outdated data. So what I mean by this is as we're preparing our budget, going through the budget cycle, there's presentations to senior management, there's presentations to the board of directors. And if we're in that room, we're presenting, say, our PowerPoint presentation, which has our tables, graphs of what our plan is for this upcoming year from the budget. If there's a mistake or maybe if it's out of date, because maybe the individuals didn't have access to the right Excel workbook, for example, or maybe someone from the finance team who's preparing these presentations might have forgot to copy and paste one of those particular tables from those Excel workbooks. The business leaders who know the business will spot that issue right away. And as soon as they spot that issue, you know you lose the room. And you're essentially left with an hour, 2 hours of finishing this presentation knowing what's in that presentation is not accurate or up to date. So definitely think of making those presentations, those PowerPoint presentations, or even those Word documents that might be prepared, whether it's monthly, quarterly, or annual reports, to have them link back to those budgeting and reporting workbooks so that as those are updated, you can refresh it. You don't want to get in this case where you're manually copying and pasting because you're definitely leaving yourself prone to error. Now, most modern budgeting applications do have linkages to, say, Microsoft or word processor presentation type suites. So then what I mean by that is, like, for example, in Microsoft, you have Excel, Word, PowerPoint. So as you update your budget models, they're linked back to they're linked directly to the data, so you can simply refresh them. So your Excel workbooks are refreshed with data. Your PowerPoint workbooks are refreshed with data based on tables and charts of data that are going back to your budget model and even your accounting system from your actuals. So you simply have to click refresh and you don't have to go through all of that copying and pasting. So definitely saving yourself headache and potentially the business leaders questioning your credibility. So given those challenges and some solutions, let's talk about what some organizations varying in size and industry are doing to what they've done with modern budgeting applications to address some of those needs. One example is Telesat. So Telesat is a leading global satellite operating provider that deploys all sorts of satellite services and communication products globally. So a large budgeting requirement where they have 20 budget managers, 40 directors worldwide, 5 companies, 60 organizations. And their challenge was housing decades of siloed data, multi-currency requirements, many Excel spreadsheets that the teams had to dig through. Things could be potentially out of date and having to make sure everything is properly updated. And then obviously multiple systems as well. So the project for them was to deploy a multi-currency financial and reporting system. So we helped them through that. So they're able to prepare their budgets in the respective currencies that the expense or revenue was incurred. So regardless of the country they're in, they can pick the appropriate currency, input the data. The exchange rates are centrally controlled, so then they can even do different scenarios on those changing exchange rates. So being able to implement something that was a little bit more dynamic, more collaborative, understanding the business needs, needing to have that multi-currency functionality, definitely went a long way. And then of course, being able to provide all the dashboarding and analytics on top of that. So at the senior management level, they can get better aggregate views of the data so they can understand what the plan looks like and how things are trending over time compared to actuals. Another organization that benefited from a modern budgeting solution is Carmana. So again, multi-country organization with 7 companies in 5 countries, so Canada, the US, UK, Germany, Singapore, and 12 different verticals and with 13 different cost centers. So they needed to actually consolidate data across multiple companies with different chart of accounts. They had difficulty keeping it up to date, refreshing the data, and providing updates on the variance reporting. And then being able to deal with other types of non-financial metrics as well. And then, of course, living in Excel spreadsheet world, which caused lots of issues and headaches. So the idea here was to create the reporting piece first. So being able to create consolidated reporting, having all the working papers that go into the consolidation process, the CTA, eliminations and adjustments. And then from a budgeting standpoint, be able to produce all of their revenue models, their cost of goods sold, planning their cost center operating expenses, their personnel and payroll, and their capital expenditures, and being able for the subsidiaries to actually do data entry at the subsidiary level in their respective chart of accounts. And another example is Ottawa Sports Entertainment Group, OSEG. So they have over 100 games a year, 100 games and events each year with 34 departments and 10 companies. So their chart of accounts were not optimal for reporting, so we actually assisted them in some COA restructure. They've also looked to use a modern budgeting reporting application to help automate their reporting. So in their old world, financial reports were not designed with the business users in mind. Budgeting was done in Excel, very manual. And then being able to budget at the individual game level was not timely, and obviously there's changes before the season schedules come out, which was difficult to update. And then there was limited integration between the finance systems and underlying subsidiary systems. So the project for them was to focus on building a budget model that helped the business users prepare their budgets in a way that was meaningful to them. So obviously thinking of the different teams in mind. So they have hockey, football, and soccer, and they also have events as well, large and medium types of events, whether it's concerts, for example, or say comedy shows as an example. So they needed to produce templates that were meaningful to those business users of the varying business groups. So creating, say, templates for preparing home and away games, so all the budgeted ticket revenue and expenses that go along with that. Planning for events, so as I was mentioning, concerts and things like, a comedy show, things like that, and be able to prepare all, again, ticket sales, the expenses that go into it, overhead allocations, and then doing all the personnel planning, whether it's the fixed payroll component, so all the individuals that maybe work for the back office services, as well as the variable component that go into those different events and games. And then preparing their statement of earnings reporting. So all of the reports were linked to their budget models and to their underlying accounting system. And then having all of their monthly reporting packages automatically updated and refreshed. So now, having gone through the challenges, understanding some tips to overcoming those challenges and discussing some real life use cases. There's definitely a need for organizations that hit that point where they know they need to look at something to help them through those challenges when Excel is definitely not the right tool from a scale standpoint, and also from an accuracy standpoint as well, is to start looking for a solution to help address those needs. So some features that you should actually look into for a new budgeting and reporting system would include data source integration. So obviously we have our mission critical systems like our ERP, our CRM, things of that nature, our operational systems as well. And so we need to make sure that we have data source integration, or at least the ability to load in the data, so that as data gets updated from an actual standpoint, or key data structures, like maybe our list of products or list of customers, things of that, when that gets updated, being able to load that back into your budget model. Be able to do what if analysis. So as we prepare the budget, we want to challenge our key assumptions and understand, say, what the impact will be on our bottom line. Being able to do top-down budget entry. And what I mean by this is, we're talking about the budget cycle. We're getting individuals involved at varying levels of the organization. So whether it's the budget managers, whether it's the directors, the direct reports, for example, then senior management and the board of directors. So when revisions are made, having some flexibility to do some top-down adjustments and having all the detailed data that rolls into it being updated can definitely go a long way into speeding up the turnaround of the budget cycle. Multi-company, multi-currency. So obviously we're in a very globalized world where companies of varying sizes are doing business in different countries. So being able to have that multi-currency support is definitely critical. So if you want to understand the impact of exchange rates, what the effect will be from bottom line, and also even from a treasury standpoint is pretty critical. Being able to do business rule and driver-based modeling. So again, getting away from just the purely dollar-based budgets and be able to create templates and assumption sheets and tables that you can easily input the data and have that ripple through your budget model is absolutely becoming a key business need, especially if you want to better engage the people from the business outside of finance. Having a template designer functionality. So being able to develop budget templates that are meaningful for the budget contributors. So not just making something that works well for finance, but also making something that works well for the business users. The ability to do process control and access control. So what that means is being able to assign people maybe to different departments, making sure everything's locked down regardless of what section of the budget model they're looking at. They can only see data maybe for their department or maybe a particular cross-section of data. Like for example, maybe they can't see salary data. So making sure that you can actually isolate those is pretty critical. Having customizable workflow, or more, I should say configurable workflow, is the idea that every organization, they run through their process a little bit differently. So be able to set up something that you can actually input the tasks and who's responsible and maybe the due date, things of that nature, and keep track of it. That better aligns with your current business process is definitely something you should consider. So it could be a very simple workflow or it could be a very complex workflow, but thinking in mind of what you can do to help better lay out the budget process and that everyone understands what's required of them and when. And then obviously having automated financial statements. So making it more than just a budgeting system. It should be really a reporting and analytical tool, something that we use to run the business. So as we're preparing the budgets, we want to also start thinking of doing rolling forecasts. We want to think of doing our variance analysis throughout the year, changing our outlook for the year. So being able to have those automated financial statements, so as actuals come in, we can line those up against our budgets, drill down into the details and see where those variances are coming from, and then updating our forecasts on a quarterly or monthly basis. Being able to have self-service analysis and reporting is quite critical. So again, finance, we don't want to be in the business of just creating reports. We want to have our business users being able to pull the reports when they want them, when they need them, being able to be pulled into the system maybe when something happens, and having everything at their fingertips as opposed to having just rely on finance or even IT to get them data extracts or run a report for them. Allow them to do that and not have to wait on finance to be a backlog and slow down potentially making key business decisions. Exception-based reporting and alerts. So maybe if a threshold is met, or maybe we go over a particular target, being able to provide an alert, whether it's visual or whether it's something that goes out to them to notify them. It allows them to more seamlessly interact with the system is something to consider. Being able to have data visualization dashboards. This is absolutely critical when we're thinking of the FP&A process. So we're doing our budgeting, we're doing our reforecasting, but then obviously at the senior management level, they want to see summarized data. They want to see data that's visually obvious to them. And this, not even just at the senior management level, this is even at the business head level or even at the operational level, to have something visual so they can clearly spot trends see where there's issues, and then be able to monitor things over time. So having those data visualization and dashboarding capabilities go a long way. And then finally, this top layer, accessibility. So being able to have mobile and obviously web-based is critical. Broadcasting, so being able to say subscribe to reports, be able to push out reports. Collaboration, so having people working on the budget cycle from different departments, from the business side. They can be even sitting in different offices in different countries. And then scalability for the business needs. So as your business is growing, if you're planning on significant growth over the next few years, and maybe the business might be changing, to really think of the application that can help satisfy the business needs, not just this year, but into the future. So given those particular needs, Corporate Renaissance Group has identified the leading business and budgeting, forecasting and reporting systems from our experience over these past 30 years of working in this industry. So we've identified Rapid Start, IDU, Board, and Adaptive Insights. So Rapid Start first, new to the North American market. It's more tailored towards small to medium-sized businesses. So simple needs, get up and running very quickly. IDU, recognized by Gartner, IDU empowers non-financial managers by giving them ownership over their budgets by promoting transparency and ultimately leading to greater accountability. We also have Board, again recognized by Gartner, 3,000 companies worldwide. It's focused on budgeting, planning, obviously, and some additional modeling capabilities around BI and scorecarding. And then Adaptive Insights is a leader in cloud-based FP&A, recognized by Gartner. It's definitely one of the leading platforms out there for medium to large size businesses. So these systems we found from our experience over the year have provided a lot of value for the clients that we've worked with directly. And we'll go through some of the functionality of each of those systems just so you can understand what's out there and these systems that have changed businesses from an FP&A standpoint. So we'll go through a couple slides looking at some key functionality and just sort of looking at them side by side. So obviously data source integration, all four systems provide it. What if analysis, collaboration capabilities, business rule driver-based modeling, drill down and drill through functionality, self-service reporting and analysis, automated financial statements and management reports, process controls and access controls, approval routing and workflows. So Rapid Start has a pre-built structure, whereas IDU, Board, and Adaptive have customizable workflows. Being able to do data visualization, all four offer that as well. Collaboration capabilities, this is key. This we see as a key feature regardless. So all of these systems do provide collaboration capabilities, accessibility. So whether it's browser, mobile, being able to connect whether you're on your laptop or whether you're on your tablet, for example. Broadcasting capabilities, so being able to say subscribe to reporting. Whether there's limits on accounts and projects, so IDU, Board, and Adaptive Insights have no limits, whereas Rapid Start would have limits because it's more designed for smaller organizations with, say, simple needs. Obviously, it can be deployed quite rapidly as well. So from a modeling standpoint, Rapid Start has pre-built templates and structures. So obviously for small organizational simple needs, you can get up and running very quickly. Whereas IDU, Board, and Adaptive also can get up and running very quickly, but they also provide some modeling capabilities where you can set up your sheets and your templates to meet the specific needs and demands of the organization. And also setting up those custom calculations, being able to do top-down budgeting, template development, predictive analytics. Board has introduced that over the past couple of years, the Beam functionality. From a deployment options, Rapid Start, IDU, Adaptive Insights, all cloud. Board has also moved to the cloud and also has an on-premise offering as well. And then from a self-service setup, Rapid Start, again, designed to be small organizations, fixed templates that are already set up. You can get up and running fairly quickly with simple needs. Whereas IDU, Board, and Adaptive, we do have training programs. If you want to be more collaborative in those approaches, you can obviously get up and running fairly quickly as well. but just a slightly different approach to those implementations versus just, say, a fixed out-of-the-box structure of Rapid Start. Now let's take a look. We'll go through each of these solutions, just do some high-level overview of what the solutions offer, and then we'll open up for, we'll do a wrap-up and then have a Q&A at the end. So we'll start with Rapid Start. So as I was mentioning, Rapid Start is designed to be simple, affordable, yet powerful. So designed for the small size organization that has simple needs and can get you up and running fairly quickly. So this offers revenue, expenses, payroll, CapEx financing, and even inputting details below the line. So it has all the needs you'd think from, say, a small, medium organization that would require setting up their budgets and just sort of a plug and play type approach. So what it includes: annual budgets, inputting your chart of accounts up to 300, profit and loss projections, cash flow, workflow, multiple entity support. You can also do balance sheet projections and cash flow as well. Now we'll look at IDU Concept. So this is a new product to our fold. It is, as mentioning, it's Gartner recognized. So the key piece about this is empowering financial management. So the idea of looking beyond just budgeting and reporting, but making this a tool for reporting analysis throughout the year. So IDU was established in '97. It is owner managed and still led by its 3 founding members. It is a Microsoft certified, gold certified partner. As I was mentioning, it is recognized by the Gartner as one of the top 25 corporate planning applications, with over 340 customers globally and 33,500 users that are using the system, customers across all industries, and specializing in budgeting, forecasting, and management reporting. So really the vision of IDU is to be the first choice of delivering accessible, user-friendly budgeting, forecasting, reporting software solutions to all levels of the business. And so what I was mentioning about this solution before, it's trying to take it beyond just being, say, a budget application. It's being a tool that's used to report throughout the year, being able to monitor business performance. So it's ideally it's linking it to the strategic financial plan from the get-go, folding that into your overall business processes throughout the year, so you can set, track, and monitor throughout the year. And the system is designed to be easy to use to empower those non-financial managers, giving them ownership of the budgets and promoting transparency. So it is web-based. It's used across virtually all browsers. And the IDU Cloud, it's a SaaS offering that's based on Microsoft Azure, and there's also a private cloud offering as well. So key functional features: it interfaces with all common ERPs. So whether that's Sage, whether that's Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle, virtually anything, you can tap into it and then set up your budget model and reporting based on those structures. Have multiple view of the data, online real-time aggregation from all those different data sources. Administration rights is owned by finance, so finance sets up, controls the budget model, and then obviously empowers then the business users to report, prepare their budgets, and then track throughout the year. And it's designed to be easy to use, easy to manage, and quick to deploy. So varying budget types as well. So there's standard types, but standard and fixed type budgets, itemized budgets where we're going down into granular level of detail, where we might want to prepare it from a detailed work plan and roll that up. Being able to do allocations, whether it's a unit and driver-based approach, where we can actually prepare the budget and allocate it out to maybe different departments and projects. Being able to do all the personnel planning based on different, say, pay grades, for example, percentage allocations, dynamic reallocations, setting up internal charges between different departments, being able to prepare your CapEx budgeting, of course, doing your personnel budgeting down to the detailed level, doing activity-based budgeting, and also doing project-based budgeting. So a wide list of different functionality from a budget standpoint that you can actually deploy and set up rapidly within the system. And so a wide variety of different industries that are using this system, whether it's logistics, financial, assurance, education, property, different sizes, different industries that are making use of IDU. Healthcare, motor, resources, print and publishing, governmental, manufacturing, agriculture, communication, retail, service and consulting. And of course, lots of satisfied clients out there, whether they're in education, whether they're in public sector, private sector, different sizes, have got a lot of use out of this system. And it's growing and it's changing and growing with them as they grow or the environment around them changes. Next, we'll be looking at Adaptive Insights, which is the leader in cloud CPM. So Adaptive Insights, it's essentially based on not just budgeting and planning, but also giving you reporting and dashboarding as well. So over 22 customers globally, large partner network, constant growth, over 80 countries globally, and #1 in market share in the cloud BI CPM space. So some large players out there like Coca-Cola, Siemens, Saab Miller, Philips, Toyota, to name a few. So a little bit about the adaptive suite. So as you see, there's 5 key components here. We see adaptive planning, which is the core component of budgeting and planning, discovery, which is the data visualization, dashboarding piece, adaptive consolidation, which is your financial consolidation aspect of it, and adaptive reporting, which will give you all your management financial reports, and then obviously the integration component to link into your varying source systems. So starting with adaptive planning, provides all of your balance sheet, cash flow, personnel planning, travel, capital sales, commissions, royalties, maintenance, debt, and M&A. So you can set up all your key budget templates that you require. So whether they're standard sheets or if they're even complex cube type sheets where you can actually model out all of the detailed drivers that go into maybe a particular component of the budget, whether that's travel or whether it's your personnel. So it can meet very simple needs and some very complex needs. From a discovery perspective, this provides all of your visualization and analytics. So your dashboarding, your metrics, your exception-based reporting. So this is the key piece for, say, the senior management team, the business leads that want to see the data visualization, understanding the trends, understanding how they're performing against their budget, going beyond just looking at flat tables of data. Adaptive reporting, this is actually integrating to whether it's directly in Adaptive or whether it's leveraging, say, Microsoft Office. So being able to take your existing workbooks, link it back to Adaptive data, have it linked to your budgets and actuals, and have those refreshed on an ongoing basis. So you can actually create your very structured, very formatted templates and have it fully linked back to Adaptive and provide your board management reporting and even transactional and ad hoc based reports. And so the Office Connect provides that dynamic connection, the smart link technology for easy refresh, complete formatting control, so you can automate all of your different report packages, whether that's in Excel, Word, or PowerPoint. And with Adaptive, with this functionality, it's designed to be fast, easy, and affordable. So a faster cycle time, so reduce the cycle time. So obviously you're gaining the ROI simply by reducing the resources from the FP&A process and focusing more time on analytics. Easy to use, so it's intuitive. So you don't necessarily have to be a finance user to use the system. And then obviously affordable, so quick to deploy, high ROI. The final application that I'll discuss is Board. So Board is an all-in-one business intelligence and corporate performance management software. So it's not module-based. So essentially Board is a toolkit-based approach where you leverage Board's toolkit to deploy budgeting, planning, and forecasting, financial consolidation, dashboarding, reporting, analytics, strategic management. So from an accessibility standpoint, Board offers the ability to go through the web. So using essentially any web browser, you can link it into your company portals. You can set up broadcasting and subscriptions to pull people in and out of the system. It also has full Microsoft Office integration to Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. So you update budgets, update actuals, and your all of your different, say, management reporting packages that might be in Excel, PowerPoint, or Word also get updated as well. And obviously, if we're on the go, we can use our mobile devices to access our data and reports as well. Board, you can set up your workflow as well. You can also make it visual to have a visual step-by-step process to understand what's required by whom and when it's due. Of course, board can do driver-based planning, similar to the other applications, where you set up all your detailed driver-based approach, put in your units, put in your rate tables, and then essentially make it a little bit more meaningful for the end users as opposed to, again, just preparing purely dollar-based budgeting. Again, going beyond just financials and volumetrics, being able to input all of your accompanying information to help with the analysis. So whether it's text, documents, comments, you can input those at a detailed level into your templates to help support or explain maybe budget values or variances. Being able to do reforecasting, so as actuals come in, forecast out to the end of the year on a rolling basis. You can prepare your management reporting packages, so all of your integrated P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow, having both your financial statements and data visualization views all in one view. Creating executive briefing books, which are interactive flip books, which filter and drill down functionality. On a data visualization side, all of the visuals as well, so drag and drop. You can click into your financial and non-financial data and display that. And then from a predictive analytics side, if you have, say, years of historical data, pull in that data at a detail level and run forecast models on what the forward-looking values might be on different statistical techniques. And then here's just a quick visualization of all of those features in one view. So scorecarding, predictive analytics, broadcasting, alerting, workflow, office integration, planning, and simulation. All right, so a quick recap. I know we're running out of time, but I'll do a quick recap of the webinar from today. So at first we went over the top 7 budgeting and forecasting challenges. So again, if you remember these 7, so obviously organizations still, regardless of size, could be still leveraging Excel-based templates, spend a lot of time administering them, not enough time spent on analysis. Challenges with the participants where they're unclear of the budgeting cycle and what's required of them. The contributors might have trouble accessing the latest version of maybe the Excel, of their Excel budget, where it lives, whether it's in, maybe it's on their computer, maybe it's sitting in their email inbox, wherever it may be, and they might be updating something that's potentially old and out of date. Trouble for the business users preparing purely dollar-based budgets, not very meaningful for them. Slow turnaround for budget revisions. Accounts are not synchronized with the accounting system and constantly recreating those reports and presentations. And those the tips to overcome those challenges. One was to create flexible and structured templates. Second one was to list tasks, assign people, set due dates, and plan for early communication. Third tip was to make the budget cycle easier by making everything more accessible. So leveraging web portals, networks, leveraging the web, leveraging the cloud. The fourth tip was setting up driver-based templates and calculations where applicable, providing last year's actuals for comparatives. The fifth tip was to have detailed budget sheets and templates linked to the overall summarized reporting structure for easy review, regardless of the level. The sixth tip was to have dynamic links and lists in your budget model that are based on your COA for ease of updating and reporting. And 7 was to have your reporting connected directly to your budget worksheets and no more copying and pasting. So again, features to look for, quick review of those, whether it's the data source integration, the what if analysis, customizable workflow, self-service reporting, collaboration, all key features that even us as an organization look for in our leading budgeting and reporting FP&A type applications. And those leading solutions are Rapid Start, IDU, Board, and Adaptive Insights. And again, a quick recap of the functionality. So obviously I'll have this functionality, data source integration, what if analysis, collaboration, business rules, driver-based planning, drill down, self-service reporting, automated financial statements, process controls, differences in the workflow setup, data visualization capabilities, collaboration capabilities, accessibility, whether it's mobile or on the go, whether it's broadcasting, if there's set structures on the accounts and projects, modeling capabilities, whether it's data modeling or custom calculations, top-down budgeting, template development, being able to do predictive analytics, deployment options, and self-service setup. All right, so all that being said, I'm almost out of breath. As I was mentioning at the beginning of the webinar, there is a questions panel in the GoToWebinar panel, so you can input your questions and we'll tackle those. So I'll just open that up and have a look here. All right. So the first question is, what accounting systems can these systems pull data from? So as I went through those the slides of those 4 leading FP&A applications, virtually they can tap into any modern accounting system, and that's regardless of those 4 systems. So different approaches for integration, but you can either directly connect to the data or load it into your flat file. It's entirely up to you, but whether you're on, say, Sage, whether you're on Dynamics, whether you're on Oracle, regardless of the accounting system, we can leverage that and essentially pull on the structures and the trial balances or even potentially transactional data. Another question is, can you pull, can you pull data that is non-financial? Yes, so again, with those 4 systems, regardless of those 4 systems, you can pull in your financial data, obviously your trial balances of transactions, but from a budget preparation and from a reporting and variance analysis standpoint, we also might want to pull in those non-financial metrics. So things like headcount, things like volume metrics, that might be important from a reporting standpoint. So yes, you can pull in all of that data into those systems. All right, the last question here is, after the solution's implemented, do you offer training and support services? So yes, we do offer training and support services for all of those 4 aforementioned FP&A systems. So we're not just in and out for an implementation. As a professional services firm, we want to be your trusted support and advisor through the whole process. And as you grow and change as an organization, we'll intimately know your business process. We want to enable you, but if you have questions, we understand you, and we can help you through your growth and changes throughout the years. All right, so that is it for questions. So what I suggest, thank you for joining, but as you saw, we have those 4 different applications. So depending on your size, complexity of needs, we have those 4 very, very robust tools that can essentially address those needs. So whether it's Rapid Start, whether it's IDU Concept, whether it's Board, or whether it's Adaptive Insights. If you complete this survey, this assessment, crgroup.com/budgeting needs, we can review those needs and we can help align you to help you assess those systems and get you up and running as soon as possible. So I'll leave this up on here for a minute. So I do definitely encourage you, if you have interest in any of those solutions, to complete that survey, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. All right, thank you everyone for attending this webinar. It's been a pleasure. And again, please complete that survey if you have interest in taking a deep dive into any of those solutions. Thank you very much and have a great day.